It's an inauguration that raises questions. On April 2, 2024, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah Al-Sissi inaugurated a city costing over $58 billion, which is expected to accommodate 6 million people by 2050. Located 45 kilometers east of the current capital, the new administrative capital is intended to relieve the congestion of Cairo and its 22 million inhabitants. The problem is that the city's still largely under construction, and few people actually live there. This huge construction site symbolizes the construction fever that seems to be gripping Egypt. Huge railway works, the world's largest museum dedicated to a civilization, the world's largest artificial river. The list of pharaonic projects under construction is long. For its future, Egypt is thinking big, very big. Some economists even believe it's too big, since all these investments, most of them made with public funds, are putting a strain on the country's budget, to the point of putting it in a very fragile economic position. As you can imagine, today we're heading for the banks of the Nile to explore the biggest construction projects currently underway in Egypt and their impact on life in this country of over 106 million people. Another thing that's going to have a huge impact is a game-changing tool called InVideo AI. With its latest version, InVideo AI v3 enables you to express your ideas in the form of stunning videos, the kind you've always wanted to create, the kind you'd be excited to share within your peers, in the most seamless, intuitive way possible, irrespective of whatever skill level you're at. For example, you can ask it to create a 30-second to 1-minute video that captures the essence of humans of New York through realistic, close-up shots of men and women. Here's just a sample.
Each with a story etched in their eyes, from the wrinkles of experience.
You can also edit anything you like add my voice. Thanks to the integration of generative capabilities, InVideo AI v3 lets you create videos from scratch on any topic you can think of, whether it's dramatic stories, ads, educational content, and so on. Unlike traditional video tools with steep learning curves that only solve for parts of your video creation process, InVideo is the creative partner that you've always wanted that removes all friction and makes the process so intuitive and fluid that it disappears, letting users focus entirely on their vision and their idea. This is a real revolution for video creation, and the great thing is that by using the link in the description or pinned comment, you could try InVideo AI for free. This will save you hundreds of dollars that you would otherwise spend on editing, animating, and other production costs. To begin with, let's take a look at one of the proudest achievements of contemporary Egypt, the Grand Egyptian Museum. Under construction for over 20 years, it's the world's largest museum dedicated to a civilization. It covers almost 500,000 square meters, or 50 hectares, and it's all in a strategic location, since the museum's right next to the pyramids of Cheops, Khafre, and Mykerinos. The Giza Plateau is also home to the Giza Sphinx, an immense sculpture standing 20 meters high and 74 meters long. One of the country's top tourist attractions, the site will eventually be linked directly to the museum by a footbridge. This cultural behemoth will take over from the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, located in the heart of the city in Tahrir Square. The venerable institution, founded in 1902, had become too cramped in the face of over 7,000 visitors a day. Over 1,550 architects and architectural firms from 83 countries responded to the call for proposals to build a new museum. The winner was Irish firm Heneghan Pong Architects. Launched in 2005, the project was scheduled for completion in 2013. The financial crisis in 2008, the Arab Spring in 2011, the COVID pandemic, galloping inflation and the price of materials, there are many reasons for the delay of a building that's now almost complete but still not inaugurated. Despite reassuring announcements from the authorities, the date of inauguration remains a mystery for the time being. On this site, 6,000 workers took turns 24/7 to bring this sleek behemoth out of the ground. The facades feature triangular panels, reminiscent of the nearby pyramids. This motif is also omnipresent on the 800-meter-long, 40-meter-high light wall, made entirely of onyx. This allows soft daylight to illuminate the interior of the building. This architectural play on the shape of pyramids has been taken to the extreme, as it can be found throughout the building. The building plan itself isn't a triangle, but by taking into account the green spaces in front and stretching the lines to the neighboring pyramids, it's possible to draw a triangle, of course. This geometric shape is logically echoed at the 40-meter-high entrance gate, This leads into an immense reception hall, where a 3,200-year-old statue of Ramses II stands majestically, 11 meters high and weighing 80 tons. Another splendid feature is the monumental staircase, with its 108 steps spanning 6,500 square meters, a space dotted with statues representing gods and rulers of the Egyptian period. As for the rest of the spaces, and in particular the 22,000 square meters devoted to the collections, including the Grand Gallery the size of 3 soccer pitches, you'll have to be patient to discover them, as they're still closed to the public. A partial opening took place in early October, covering around 10% of the museum, including the auditorium and stores. Visitors can now discover a few areas, including the entrance hall and the grand staircase. This total opening is all the more eagerly awaited as some of the nuggets in the collections are the stuff of dreams for travelers the world over. For example, the Tutankhamun's 4,500 pieces of funerary furniture will, for the first time, be presented in their entirety in a single location. Ultimately, the building's expected to house almost 100,000 pieces. Visitor numbers are expected to reach 5 million a year. Although the building was originally expected to cost 500 million euros, the bill is now doubled to 1 billion. But nothing seems too good for this showcase for Egypt's vital tourism sector, which accounts for 10% of the country's GDP. In addition to the tourism aspect, the museum is also a diplomatic asset for Egypt. This ultra-modern facility is an argument that the country hopes will be decisive in recovering Egyptian antiquities scattered around the world, and in particular in European museums. For the time being, the return of works of art has been piecemeal, with cultural institutions reluctant to let go of what are for some iconic treasures. This is an area in which Egypt expects to accelerate the movement. Speaking of speed, Egypt should also find some with the development of its high-speed rail network. This huge project, estimated at over 21 billion euros, will be carried out by a German-Egyptian consortium comprising Siemens Mobility, Orascom Construction, and Arab contractors. The aim is to build 3 major rail lines stretching over 2,000 kilometers of track, enabling trains to travel at speeds of 250 kilometers an hour for high-speed trains, 180 kilometers an hour for regional trains, and 120 kilometers an hour for freight trains. A real revolution for the country, as trains currently travel at between 80 and 120 kilometers an hour. Operated by Egyptian National Railways, the country's rail network currently extends over 9,570 kilometers, one of the largest in Africa. Extremely dilapidated and under-maintained, it's often faulty and even the cause of serious accidents. Of the 3 new lines, the first is already being dubbed the Suez Canal on rails. This 660-kilometer rail corridor will link the Red Sea port of Ain Sakna with the Mediterranean port of Marsa Matruh on the Libyan border. To do so, it'll pass through the new administrative capital, Cairo and Alexandria. Construction work's already begun on this line, which will link many of Egypt's vital economic points. It should be fully operational by 2027. The other 2 planned lines seem to have more of a tourist dimension. One, over 1,000 kilometers long, will start in Cairo and wind its way through the Nile Valley, ending in Abu Simbel in the far south of the country, almost on the border with Sudan, passing through Luxor and Aswan in particular. These places are considered to be Egypt's tourist hotspots. Luxor will also be the point of arrival of the last train line planned to date, which will depart from Hurghada, a city on the shores of the Red Sea. The opening dates of these last 2 lines remain rather opaque for the moment. Another question mark is the completion date for Egypt's biggest construction site, the new administrative capital. Although inaugurated by Egyptian President Abdel Fattah Al-Sissi, it remains largely under construction. Launched in 2016 at the behest of the man who's ruled the country since 2013, Sissi City, as it's nicknamed, is a city 7 times the size of Paris. The new seat of political power, the city lies 45 kilometers east of Cairo, a bustling capital of 22 million inhabitants on the brink of demographic explosion. It's also intended to be the showcase of the new Egypt, with venues to match General Al-Sissi's ambitions. These include the iconic tower, Africa's new tallest skyscraper at almost 394 meters, and the Octagon, a new defense headquarters whose proportions surpass those of the Pentagon in the United States. To explore this XXL construction site in greater depth, I've included a description of the video I made on the subject. planning, an Olympic city, but also political reasons for moving, foreign investment, and globalized surveillance of the population, this place has many surprises in store, which I invite you to discover. Another development is the cost of such a project. Not yet definitive, it's estimated at between 52 and 60 billion euros, even though the construction work's not yet been completed. A financial abyss that's putting a strain on public spending, since in the absence of foreign investors, it's the state that's taken out the checkbook. Another astronomical project on which President Al-Sisi's embarked Egypt is the creation of the world's largest artificial river. The New Delta Project, as it's called, aims to expand Egypt's arable land and help the country overcome its food dependency, since it imports a large number of commodities, chief among them wheat. Launched in 2021, the project aims to redirect agricultural wastewater from one of the Nile's tributaries to irrigate over 9,000 square kilometers of new farmland. To this end, a 114-kilometer artificial river is being built. A unique project in the country's agricultural history, which I detailed in a video released a few months ago. I've included the link in the description if you'd like to find out more. The latest announcement concerning this project is the commissioning of the Al Hammam wastewater treatment plant. The largest plant of its kind in the world, the Al Hammam plant plays a crucial role. It is to this plant that the canals carrying the wastewater to be treated will be directed, before it's redirected to new cultivation zones. A monster capable of treating 7.5 million m3 of agricultural wastewater every day. All in all, this new delta should increase Egypt's arable land by over 20%. The plant alone costs over $500 million, and the overall project's estimated at around $10 billion. This list of major investments is not without financial consequences. In less than 10 years, Egypt's foreign debts tripled to nearly $168 billion, a situation that leaves the country in a delicate position on the world market. Deemed unreliable, the country's currency has been heavily devalued. Coupled with terrible inflation, particularly in foodstuffs, the Egyptian population is the first to be affected by this poor economic situation, with a drop in its standard of living in a country where 2/3 of the 106 million inhabitants are poor or on the poverty line. But this is not stopping Egypt from continuing with its pharaonic construction strategy. The government's announced a feasibility study for the new extension of the Suez Canal by a further 10 kilometers, following a first phase of work covering 35 kilometers, completed in 2015. And this despite a drop in maritime traffic since the start of the conflict between Israel and Hamas. After months of negotiation, the International Monetary Funds granted the country an $8 billion loan to help offset the consequences of the war in Ukraine, and in particular, the soaring price of wheat. A positive signal from the IMF, which should give foreign investors confidence. In exchange, the country must carry out a number of economic reforms. In the meantime, if you'd like to find out more about the mega projects underway in Egypt, check out my videos here. See you soon on Looking For.